Oh, there's coffee.
There's coffee.
Oh, nice. I need some.
We're on the spot.
Yes, you are.
It's okay. We'll keep it casual. You know, we're very intimidating in general, so
Especially her.
especially
I
me.
actually got through everything today.
Hey, that's great. That's great. That's so funny.
Hi.
Hi,
Candy, what's up?
there's coffee here. That's
There's
good.
coffee. Yes, Gary hooked us up.
Coffee at night?
It's decaf. It's decaf.
Oh, okay.
It's Temple. It's decaf.
Well, you know, my parents, it was so odd. They sit down,
Warren, Warren.
and help us. They're like,
They
no, I
didn't
didn't
know
know
that
that.
there was caffeine
Well,
in
they
it.
did know, but.
My cat is excited.
That's odd.
They're the sleepers.
I've been here all day.
Happy to meet you, girl.
It's
Actually, I
Wednesdays,
would-
they schedule everything.
Are so long. I know what you place to be.
My nails together because there's no.
So I'm going to start with the summary. True?
Great, let's do it, yeah.
Good, good,
That
good.
sounds good. Can we close this?
Hey,
They got
Nan-
hailed
how are
out.
you, Nancy? Good, good. I'm doing
We didn't
well.
hear.
We had like a good winter.
Where are you guys?
Southwest.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah, as good as it
Solon
could
got
have been this
hit
year.
Really, really
I
hard.
mean, it was just bitter.
It looks really bad. We know.
Okay.
Yeah.
You were here, so you were down south?
I bet.
Okay.
Well, I think there's more coming tomorrow.
That's-
You know, it's nice to be away in the sunshine.
Yeah, of course.
Yes.
Oh, this is good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Shall we wait a few more minutes?
Nah.
What do you think? We'll get going? Okay.
Yeah, no.
The boss says we're starting.
No offense to anybody who's about to wander in late. It's fine. Well, no, I think more folks may be joining us online, so maybe we should. We'll
Oh,
wait a
okay,
bit.
let's do it.
We'll see.
So, welcome to. I think we didn't put out the announcement, the reminder early enough, and that may have impeded some people. And also the weather. I'm sorry?
Well, we sent out a reminder also in March that we weren't meeting in March and what to do for today, but we didn't send out this week's reminder until this morning. But yeah.
Right, I think that may have had something.
But you're all here.
Yeah.
We're happy to be with
We're
you.
glad. Yeah. Certainly out in Solon, I understand it was not great. But welcome to those who are live streaming. We're glad to have you. Okay, so tonight we're going to work on chapter 1, sections 4 and 5. What I want to do is just take a little look at the table of contents just to see where we are. And then I'm going to give hopefully a somewhat brief overview of the chapter, which I think is a very, very interesting one. So those of you who have the books, and those who don't, about Israel, and part 3 is about the Jewish people. Israel also applies to the Jewish people, but it represents the place, the state, and it's also the name of the Jewish people, another name for Jacob, who is the father in the Bible of the 12 sons who are the ancestors of the 12 tribes. So in part 1, we've looked at the God of black and white, Orthodox Judaism, the God of social justice, essentially progressive Judaism, the God whose law evolves, that is a kind of halachic view of law, but which can evolve over time. And then tonight we're going to look at 4 and 5, the Jews without God and the struggle. And then the next time we'll probably move to part 2, but we'll see about that. So let's take a look at page 95. I'm going to try to run through this a bit quickly just to give us a sense of what's going on here. So I want to read the first paragraph because I think it summarizes very nicely what he's up to. Can you be a Jew if you don't especially believe in God or practice Jewish rituals? The answer is indisputably yes. But what kind of Jew can you be? What beliefs or practices or ways of being in the world would make you Jewish? These are much more interesting questions. In previous chapters, I mentioned the option of living exactly the same Jewish life without believing in God, as one would if one believed, which I called As If Judaism, theorized by Mordecai Kaplan. In this chapter, I want to explore something different. I want to explore ways of thinking and being Jewish that don't consist of praying in synagogues with other Jews or studying specifically Jewish texts or following the halakha. And sometimes in this chapter, he uses belief in God as a way of talking about these different components, right? So it's not just God, it's not just other than God he's trying to make a case for, but all the things that follow from the traditional belief in God. Praying in synagogues, studying specifically Jewish texts, or following the halakha. If you want to be flippant, you could say that this chapter is in defense of the bagel and lox Jew. If you wanted to be serious, you could say that this chapter affirms the legitimacy of a Jewishness that rejects not only God, but certain aspects of Jewishness itself, especially its particularism. I want to just point again to a phrase in this sentence, a Jewishness that rejects not only God. So he begins this chapter by talking about the rejection of God. At the end of the chapter, I think he takes it back and brings God in also for godless Jews, which I think is a really problematic move. And I want to look at that a little bit. So on page 96, third three lines down, he talks that about these Jews might be described as assimilated, a term that mistakenly implies both that the Jew has swallowed general civilization whole, or alternatively, that general civilization has swallowed the Jews. And then he says this is rarely other the case. So I think he's trying to say here that one can be embedded in modern culture in significant ways without deserving the name assimilated. Okay, I think that's what this chapter is trying to do. Then he goes on to talk about types of godless Jew, and I'm just going to summarize them quickly. There is this guy, Isaac Deutscher, he refers to on page 96, who wrote a famous book, The Non-Jewish Jew. The non-Jewish Jew who nevertheless, he says, belongs to the Jewish tradition, so that in some ways is embracing elements of Judaism, but can also be seen from a traditional point of view as non-Jewish. The second component that he deals with under that category is a Judaism that transcends Judaism into a universalism, which he labels liberal humanist secularism. Okay? The third kind of non-Jewish, non-traditional Jew is Zionism, and especially the forms of Zionism, for example, the Second Aliyah, which began in 1905, which was a deeply secular socialist view of the Jewish community in Israel. But to call Jewish nationalism in its many forms godless Jewish would be wrong. Mm-hmm. So he's referring to a certain kind of early Zionism, right? The Biluim, the first group that went over in 1899, something like that, 13 people who tried to start Zionism, they were also secular. Then he talks about two kinds of Jewish nationalism, Zionism itself and what he calls the support of Israel Zionism, where people don't feel they need to move there, but they're still kind of nationalist in spirit. And then he talks about cultural Jewishness, which focuses on peoplehood, on language, on ethnicity. Forms of godless Judaism, to use his understanding. Cultural Jewishness is also a way of identifying with Jews and Jewish ways. That is, without being religious, without going to the synagogue, without studying Jewish law, still an identification with Jews and Judaism, and behaving in ways that we might understand as Jewish. These people also, according to him, express a pride in Jewish accomplishments and want their children to be, and if you read this chapter, he calls this kind of Judaism fans of Judaism, right? Just like the fans
I'm a big
of a
fan.
particular team. So, and he recognizes this is somewhat facetious and unfair. But these are Jews who, to some degree involved, care about it, would like to carry on the tradition. And he goes on to make the claim that what makes godless Jewishness special is the seriousness and the resilience with which it has been pursued by Jews in the modern era. Okay? So he's trying to make a case, as he says at the beginning, for a kind of Judaism that's not religious. Okay? He points out that the emancipation of the Jews in Western Europe in the late 18th century created for the Jews both new opportunities and new challenges. And the various forms of Judaism that come out of the emancipation and the Enlightenment really define to some significant degree the map of Judaisms in the modern world, accommodating oneself to this modernity, being given the rights of citizens, however seriously they were given, as well as trying to maintain a Jewish identity in a radically changing environment. And he makes the point that emancipated Jews wanted more than to belong to the majority culture. And so their challenge was how to maintain cultural differences while still participating as citizens. And this is really, in a certain sense, from a Jewish point of view, the Jewish question. Mm-hmm. How do we balance two kinds of loyalty, and to what degree each? Mostly secular, let's say America, this much Judaism, and so on. And so he's giving us a kind of outline, a map of the kinds of ways Jews in the modern world adjusted. Then he talks about Marxism, Freudianism, which one can claim to be secular, non-Jewish. And he wants to make the claim that these forms of cultural expression are often seen as maintaining Jewish values. For example, Marx's idea of a utopian society, which he claims can be seen as a kind of derivative from Jewish messianism, this expectation of a kind of perfected society. Okay? Also the universalism of, let's say, Freud, who's talking about humanity and the kinds of dynamics that go on in personality development. So he's making the claim here that even from these so-called atheistic Jews, atheistic individuals, have still continued to embrace and transform Jewish values. And I think that's a very, very interesting claim. Often other elements of inherited Judaism are the importance of study, the importance of learning, a notion of secular salvation. He points to the kibbutzim in Israel, collectivist societies, which attempted to impose or develop a kind of Marxist sense of classlessness into Israeli society, even though Jewish expressions have a kind of lineage from certain secular socialists' things. Let's look at page 111 quickly. 111. And I'm just looking at the second paragraph, about 5 lines into it. In practice, you see where I am? I want to suggest here, Bagels and Lox Jews are mostly secular humanists in belief and affiliation. Instead of an absence of Jewishness in their moral, political, and communal commitments, there is a displaced Jewishness that is itself powerfully and distinctively Jewish. I like that formulation very much as a summary of the kind of Jewish identity that he's talking about. Let's continue below. The obvious benefit of godless Jewishness is to provide space for Jews to engage the universe as Jews, even when they find they cannot embrace any conception of God. The drawback, and I think this is an interesting idea here, is that godlessness can harden into a dogma of its own, a dogma of atheism that unchecked can approach the fundamentalism of theistic belief. This dogma, taken to its illogical extreme, may cause godless Jews to refuse the content of their own distinctively Jewish experience. In other words, if one is steadfastly atheistic, one may not, but still wants to maintain some kind of Jewish identity. To be dogmatic about it is to block for yourself a continued access to the rich Jewish tradition that can continue, not necessarily to return you to godly Judaism, but to enrich your Judaism. It's an interesting idea that one, as oxymoron-ish as it might seem, dogmatic atheism can also be a problem on the other side of the spectrum. There's dogmatic theism, the belief in a traditional God, that he's making the claim. At the other end, there's also a dogmatism that disallows a kind of openness to possibility. And I think that's a nice idea from him. Let's go to page 113 and the last paragraph. What I'm saying is that our conception of what counts as a meaningful Jewish life needs to be broadened and strengthened. We need to see the beauty in the many forms of Jewish thinking and believing, including Jewish displacement and disbelief. Even conscious rejection of Jewishness may be meaningfully Jewish. And I think he's made a case for it. Marx and Freud and so on rejected Judaism, and yet, even willy-nilly, without their intending it, Jewish values continue to be expressed. Even conscious rejection of Jewishness may be meaningfully Jewish. The test is whether, in shaping your worldview, you are struggling with God, the God of Israel. In the next chapter, the last of this part of the book, I'll try to explain what I mean. And I want to quickly move to this and so what he's shown so far is the vast variety of Jewishnesses that are to be distinguished from traditional belief in God and its consequences, all right? So he's dealt with a pluralism of this form of Judaism. In the last paragraph of 113, he's asking, but what is the characteristic that defines them all? Can we find a kind of unified vision of this form of Jewishness for all its variety? And that's what he's looking at. Page 114. Is there a unifying Jewish theological worldview, one broad enough to include God as understood by Jewish traditionalists, progressives, evolutionists, that the law develops over time, and also the possibility that there is no God. What unifies all of these impulses? I think the answer is yes. I want to suggest it is possible to characterize Jewishness in the way the Bible explains the meaning of the name Yisrael, which means to strive, to struggle, and to contend. The nature of the striving, struggling, contending differs from each form of Jewishness, as it does for each Jew, but anyone who embraces the self-definition of belonging to the people of Israel, the big tent, in whatever way will find something powerful and familiar and meaning-making in the process. And so he looks at this famous passage of Jacob wrestling with the angel on page 116, and the Hosea passage, and then he works with that, a kind of traditional investigation of the meaning of this passage, to show the variety of ways in which different forms of Judaism struggle with these questions. On page, so let's just look without going into them, and we can talk about them a little more later. Let's look at page 121, the second to the last page. Second paragraph. Godless Jews and cultural Jews and secular Zionists, in all their multifarious manifestations, are struggling with God too. Whether they like it or not, this raised a red flag for me, because I recall something that the first chief rabbi of the state of Israel, Rav Kook, said about the Zionists, the secular Zionists. They don't know it, but they're doing God's work. Now, to me, that is a very inauthentic attribution. People have a right not to believe in God. And if you say to the ones that say they don't believe in God, but really, underneath it all, you're doing God's work, is unfair to them because we're not taking them seriously. This is what I think he's doing. To deny God is to wrestle with him always. Now, there are secular Jews who say they don't believe in God, and for somebody to say to them, but you are still wrestling with him, I think is very unfair. To deny God while still belonging to a Jewish people that classically self-defined itself in relation to God is a struggle of a still taller order. The effort of godless Jews to remain Jews is perhaps the most Jewish struggle of all. Love it. I think that's a powerful claim. What greater mark of respect for God could there be than continuing to struggle with that God once one is honorably convinced of God's non-existence? Here's the problem. The chapter tries to give authenticity to the godless Jew, but he takes it back at the end by saying, really, a godless Jew is also grounded, know it or not, in some godliness. So what attracts me to this chapter is its celebration of Jewish pluralism, the big tent. And to me, this is one of the secrets of Jewish survival, especially in a dynamic society. There are many ways of doing it. And at certain moments in our history, certain things are emphasized. But it's like, if you'll pardon the analogy, a big smorgasbord table filled with Jewish stuff. And people can come over and against their needs and what the pressures of the day are and find their way into Judaism. And at the end, I think he takes that lovely vision back, although to some degree indirectly. Okay, an attempt to summarize.
Well done.
Thanks.
That's pretty good. I think on that last point, he kind of reveals what he's going to do. Go back to page 112 for a second at the bottom. I think he rejects the concept of atheism and wants us to be agnostic at most. So he says there are then limits to what we know and what we can know. Accepting those limits is the key to avoiding fateful error. We must learn to be satisfied with what we are able to achieve. A godless Jew who does not believe in God need not deny God in any possible form. Put a little differently, as Jews, as humans, we must learn to live with the impossibility of certainty. We strive to know and to understand. We should not necessarily expect to arrive at the desired destination. So to me, that's his kind of refusal of atheism. We could not believe in God, but we don't have to deny God. So then, of course, we can't then be atheist, because we should be agnostic at best, not atheist. It's very interesting.
I think so too.
I liked that you wrote no in the margins over here, by the way. I liked that.
Yes.
When I was hearing back through the summary, one of the things that got me thinking is, can you convert to Bagels and Lox Judaism? Like, is there a way to join the peoplehood? Is there a ritual conversion into the peoplehood that doesn't require...
When you say conversion, you mean a formal kind of ceremony or
Maybe.
just transition?
Maybe, but it feels like, if you're not of a Jewish peoplehood, can you transition into that kind of Judaism?
But there certainly are what we might call, overly derisively, Bagels and Lox Jews.
There are.
And-
That's a really nice Ashkenormative phrase, by the way. Not all of us eat lox. Not all of our people are Eastern European.
So the answer is no.
The answer is no. But no, I think there are Bagels and Lox Jews. There's one of the things Jews love about being Jewish is Jewish culture. There are the things that we do. There's the food that we eat. There's the melodies that are ours. Culture is a big piece that religious Jews are excited about, not just the Bagels and Lox Jews. But we have methods to convert into Judaism. And so if that is its own kind of standalone Jewish identity, can you convert into that?
And what's at stake here? I mean, you could say there are those Jews. Are you asking, is there a way to get to that point?
Maybe.
But
How can you become that kind of Jewish if you weren't already Jewish?
Right.
So,
Well-
like, for instance, I've got a lot of friends who are Jewish, millennials who are Jewish, who married non-Jewish spouses. And many of these Jewish, I'm thinking mostly of a couple of women in my mind. So these Jewish women who have married men. So the Jewish person is the woman in the family. Her traditions are, maybe she lights candles. Maybe they have challah on Shabbat. But there's no, religious identity. That's just the thing Jews do. We're not lighting candles because it's a mitzvah or because of God. It's Friday night and that's what we do. So if the partner then is hosting the bagel brunch and getting excited about, the Rosh Hashanah brisket he's going to smoke on the grill, this is real.
Yeah.
What then, is that person basically converted into that kind of Judaism? Because he's there doing the food ways.
seems to me the question is this a form of Judaism?
Yeah, is it its own form of Judaism?
Well, one way to find out.
Are you guys following this? Okay.
One way to find out is to ask him. Do you feel something
I think I've heard them say Jewish adjacent or Jewish. They're not anything else. No one in the family is practicing any other religion. We're not church going. They've got children.
What are the children think?
The children are little.
So I have.
Be serious.
In my family.
He-
You have this in your family. So how does it manifest in your family?
So my son married a non-Jewish girl.
Okay.
Did not convert, and they raised all three of my grandchildren as Jewish.
Okay.
She's not Jewish. She's born Catholic but not practicing.
Okay.
And they are, when they got married, I said to him, this is your turn. You get to figure it out.
Okay.
Don't forget who you are.
Okay.
And I wrote it. I said, so if that doesn't mean going to temple, okay, put on a piece of Jewish music, eat some
Eat a bagel.
Remember, I tried to, but they did. So they had Shabbat, challah, the kids love the challah, you know, and they had every Friday night. They started in synagogue, but she didn't get formal religion, so that was the end of it. So the kids were tutored in our mitzvah.
Interesting.
That was the end of it, though. It was a tutor.
Okay.
So it wasn't a community.
Was it nestled? Yeah.
Community became couples who are not, one's Jewish,
Uh-huh.
one's not.
Uh-huh.
They're raising their kids, so, most of them are with basically nothing. But if I ask my grandchildren, what are you?
Mm-hmm.
And they say, we're Jewish.
Yeah.
Do they do anything Jewish in their own now?
Well-
One's graduated from college, another one's, you know, in college.
What do you think they mean when they say they're Jewish?
I don't go there too deeply because they're very, very to the left at the moment. So I'm not having the real deep conversations.
But would you be surprised if when they got married, they wanted to raise their kids Jewish? Would you be surprised?
Yeah,
Would you? Because they say they're Jewish.
yeah. I think they would be a bagel and lox. I think it would dissolve even more.
What does that mean?
Dissolve even more is a
Some
strong
people say
way of
that's
saying
okay
that.
today.
Hmm?
Some people say it's okay to be a bagel and lox Jew.
Yeah.
A Jew's a Jew.
Well, it is. I mean, it is.
It's
You know,
acceptance.
I see that their last name is Levy.
Hard to run away from that.
And when they, you know, I made seders, I did the holidays, so they get that, they have those memories from when they were little. Maybe, I don't know, but, you know, they're.
I remember
people.
a cousin of mine, this was a long time ago, married a Catholic, didn't care about it at all, and they continued on until the first child came. She wanted to baptize the child. He went berserk. So in a certain sense, he had given up Jewishness, but it was still there in some form or another, maybe recessive. But at a certain moment in his life, that identity raised its head. And so even those who we might say, if your answer about your grandchildren was, when they get married, they're going to maintain Judaism, maybe no. Who knows? Because they've had some of it, and it may be more powerful to them, though as a potential and not as an actuality. So it seems to me that we should embrace that part of the spectrum too, because there may very well be a potent to be identity.
I feel like I've had a few important reminders of that recently. I've had a couple of adults come to me to say, you know, they're Jewish, they have Jewish parents, and maybe even had a baby naming or a bris. One of them actually even was called to Torah, but that kind of like fell out of it for a while. And that they've come to me for reaffirmation. They don't want to convert because they're Jewish, but they want to mark the reaffirmation of their Jewish identity, and to maybe, I'm trying to get one of them to immerse in a mikveh, but to like really kind of mark that reclaiming of self, of identity. And I think what it's reminded me of is that, like most things in our lives, Jewish identity doesn't have to be static. It can be dynamic over time. We have moments where we lean heavily on Jewish tradition and ritual and community, and periods in our life where we lean less heavily. And I think that kind of cycle or dynamic tension is really important to make space for. And so I think there are maybe even those of us around the table who at various seasons of our lives have actually been, to an outsider, a bagels and lox Jew. And then at other times have had probably, hopefully, deep spiritual connectivity, maybe to God or some other kind of mystery, but that we've kind of searched and struggled. And I think that it's hard to know someone's truth if we're not in their head. And I think, you know, I hear often from grandparents who are in similar situations. Yours is a common tale. I don't know if that brings you comfort or not, but maybe not.
I know, because I have these discussions
With
friends
peers,
that
yeah.
similar.
And I think there is something to, like, when you make a Seder and your grandkids taste those flavors year over year, that's what Passover tastes like. They have the sense memory of it, which they may not hold as paramount importance right now, But, as they continue to become who they're going to be, that's what it tastes like. There will be a right way to have matzo ball soup. What's more Jewish than having an opinion on matzo ball soup, right?
Right,
They're going to have it. Exactly. They're going to have opinions. So I don't know. I think there has to be space for change in a person's life.
Right. And another question is, in terms of Jewish survival, which is always imperiled, what sense does it make to read certain people out of, you're not really Jewish? We want as big a tent as possible, because how do we know what kind of Judaism is going to be important for the survival of the Jewish people in difficult times?
In response to what Rabbi Muhlbaum was saying about, is there some kind of conversion to even Bagel and Locke's Judaism, there's no excommunication, is there?
No, that's the whole funny part to me about the Freud and Marx thing. We claim them even if they didn't want to claim us.
Whether you consciously opt in or not.
That's right.
You're part of the family,
That's right.
right, from which you can never be excluded.
But he's making that claim and a stronger one, that it's not only they're claimable, but their values happen to be Jewish values.
Right.
Which I think makes the point that you got to look hard to recognize where Judaism exists, even though it doesn't seem to.
Yeah, thinking about your comment about the way he sort of negates his openness to godless Jews being 100% Jewish in a way that's very important. He sort of does the same thing with Marx when he's talking about Karl Marx's ideas about, first of all, he was born Methodist, his parents converted.
Yeah.
And he rejects everything about Judaism except viewing Jews from a materialist point of view.
Yes.
In other words, they're a group of people who've been very successful in the capitalist system, and he hopes someday that distinction is gone. And I never read this word in Marxist theory class, but I mean, to read that word, that Judaism would then be euthanized.
Oh my gosh, yeah. That's a startling phrase.
Really startling, yeah.
My reaction to that was, well, Carl, thou doth protest too much. And here this brilliant author, Mr. Feldman, has shown us all how your rejection of Judaism actually makes you kind of Jewish, whether you want to admit it or not, and your whole schema is based on, at least in a kind of formalist sense, on Jewish theology.
Yeah.
But he's at the end of the chapter, that comment that you cited sort of resonates with this. It's like he's talking to Marx and saying, hey, pal, you can reject this all you want.
Nice try, yeah.
You're still Jewish.
Exactly.
Even though as second generation Methodist,
You know,
you can't hide it and you can't run from it. It's following you and it's baked into your theory.
even if you run from it or try to hide it, it has a life of its own. It comes back.
A person's Jewishness? Is that what you mean?
Not necessarily the person's Jewishness, but the Jewishness of the person,
Okay.
that he's carrying it forward. The philosopher Hegel had a notion of the cunning of history, that things happen in a very unexpected way. Who knew that Freud, that Marx were going to be carriers of Jewish values, even if they negated that they were Jews? So Jewish values continues to seep into the culture, and people who may not identify themselves as religious Jews embrace the universalism, say, of Marxist socialism, and are expressing a Jewish value. And if they do this with other people, perhaps that will give rise to a kind of a self-awareness that, my gosh, I'm more Jewish than I thought.
But is it unfair to do that just to people who have Jewish roots? Like we don't do that with other peoples of the world who have values that align exactly with one of our values. We don't say, well, like, oh, that Native American thing is actually a Jewish value, so they're Jewish.
Well, hang
Do
on.
we do that?
Well, there was a parallel in here, he's talking about what I think an African-American historian would call Tunis.
Okay.
You know, where you have to relate to the majority culture, but you have your own culture. And you can never be 100% your authentic self in the majority culture. Because you always have to hold something back. And that's how it feels to be black.
But-
I think that when we're focusing,
I relate to that.
Yeah,
We're-
me too.
and maybe it's appropriate, I mean, we're talking in a synagogue setting, but we're talking about defining Jewishness or not purely in terms of belief as opposed to ethnicity. And you know, and I'm no expert, you know, I'm just trying to get back into some of this stuff, but I mean, as I understand it, the halachic law is not about what you believe, it's about, was your mother halachically Jewish? And yes, you are. And, I mean, I've done 23andMe, and I'm, you know, 98.5% Jewish.
You're in.
Yeah, you're in.
So, like comparing it then to black people, or even pro-laws, which were very similar to, you know, I've done a lot of reading on the Holocaust, and particularly by people from, you know, Romania. It's sort of the same as in Germany, where you have sort of specific definitions of what it means racially to be a Jew.
Sure.
And for the most part, you're treated as a Jew as a bad thing.
Yeah.
If you have, you know, a pretty small percentage.
One grandparent.
Well, you know, do you have to be either a Jew or not a Jew? I mean, if you look at most black people in the U.S., they may identify as black. Very few of them are pure, you know, they don't look like people from Nigeria. They are, they're a mixed breed. Or you have Tiger Woods, who resists being called black. It's, you know, an insult to his mother. But, you know, do we have to be either Jewish or not Jewish, or can we be partly Jewish? And is there an element of the, you know, sort of race and ethnicity which is legitimate to consider in that definition?
That's an interesting question. But I don't know what, you know, if there's ever been a census like this of the membership of this temple, but I would imagine that most people are, you know, in the same category that we are. You know.
Of our generation.
Yeah.
I think, I mean, I have a son who's very serious with a Catholic woman. She's not converting, but she's, you know, learning how to bake challah.
Every home should have a challah.
She baked holiday cookies. She had like the Christmas cookies. She also got some, what do you call it, not a mold, what do you call it?
Yeah, like a cookie cutter.
She
Yeah.
has the cookie cutters to do like Star David's.
Oh, that's funny.
He's not talking.
Very
If you have a Star David cookie cutter, are you
That
Jewish?
counts. That's something. It's not nothing.
I mean, if they were to
Think so.
have children though, and so just thinking about basic genetics.
Yeah.
Knowing my wife and I are both, you know, on the ultra high scale.
Mhm.
So, you know, those children would be close to, you know, 50%. I mean, so are they Jewish or not?
So I think that this question of ethnicity in Judaism is a really fraught one for a lot of reasons. One is anti-Semitism. And I think another is the many centuries of conversions and acknowledging that like ethnicity might be a piece of Jewish identity. And maybe for a bagels and lox Jew, it's a majority of an identity, but it's never the whole identity. Like ethnicity cannot be the whole story for Jews. Now, it can be incredibly important to know our kind of Jewish heritage and our, you know, genetics, especially because of the diseases that certain, you know, hereditary patterns that we find in Jewish families. But I think like to have ethnicity be a metric is a very dangerous game. And I think that's not unique to just the, what are we, the Jews of social justice, what does it call us? I don't think it's just us. Progressive. I think that the idea of ethnicity as a marker cannot be the whole story for Jewish identity.
It could certainly be a marker or at least a platform for
Mm-hmm.
Jewish identity,
Yes.
what's the danger that we can be targeted?
I think the danger is that when we look at who's actually Jewish, Jews come from all sorts of places. Like, Jewish ethnicity is not one homogenous thing. We don't all look one way. We don't all speak one language. We don't all eat one food way. Like, our people have been dispersed around the world for generations.
But that said, and we do have the science on this now. I mean, the Ethiopian Jews have Jewish genes. They share in that gene pool. And you know, the Ashkenazi and this, I mean, all these different Jews, you know, when I say I'm 98.5% Ashkenazi Jewish, is what 23andMe says.
Right.
Ashkenazi Jewish is a separate category.
Oh, I know. I'm married to somebody who's 100% Ashkenazi Jewish. Tell me. I know.
Would it be better, would you
It's off
be,
the charts.
would it be better if we talked about ethnicities?
Ethnicities would be interesting. Yeah, I think also like it's sensitive for folks who aren't 100% Jewish genetically, right? Like, they're not less Jewish. No, I know, but like my mom converted. Her people are not actually, weirdly, her dad was a Tay-Sachs carrier, which was kind of a weird fluke. But we don't have any known Jewish ancestry on my mom's side at all. And she converted. I'm not less Jewish because of my ethnicity, right? Like, a Jew of color, this happens a lot, by the way, in the modern era, where Jews of color are expected to be converts. That's not true. There are many people from all over the world with different journeys to Judaism, with different ancestry in their families that lead them to Judaism. They're not ethnically Jewish. If they're Jewish, then they're part of the ethnicities of Judaism.
Isn't it the difference between what is the case and the perception of what is the case? And I think what he's talking about is the former. What is the case can be a wide variety of things, whatever the perceptions that can be misperceptions are. So if we talk about ethnicities, there are a variety of ways of being an ethnic Jew, and not just Ashkenazi or Sephardic.
Right.
And I think that would be fine with this chapter. I mean, I think that Feldman would be fine with that, don't you?
I do.
Yeah.
Honestly, if you're talking about for the majority of Ashkenazi Jews from Russia, Ukraine, whatever, they had no choice. I mean, where were you going with that? You know, you were living, you know, in a shtetl or, you know, in some place it's like, you know, you weren't going to a university or camps or
That's
colleges.
right.
And you were meeting other people. I mean, this is where you were, this
Right.
is what you, right. And so I think for also, I mean, I think as you're talking, I'm thinking about my parents. I mean, they were strongly Jewish, but my mom, like, never went to synagogue. My dad did. You know, we had seders, we had the food, and we started reading, and it was like, okay, let's just.
You left them in Egypt.
So my sister and I, you know, we kind of do the whole thing, so. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, that's also like what rituals speak to us in our given season of life. I think also, you know, thinking about Soviet Jewry and how if religiosity is repressed and then you have the opportunity to participate in organized Jewish life, like what does that lead to more secularism? Does it lead to more orthodoxy? Does it lead to something somewhere in between? And I think what we see now, a generation and a half later, is that a lot of folks found all sorts of spots along that spectrum of practice, that a lot of folks feel really authentically Jewish being secular Americans, and a lot of them feel really authentically Jewish being Orthodox, and everything in between.
But it goes to those questions, the Big Ten versus the not Big Ten.
Okay.
It's the same issue you have like in political parties, right? I mean,
Sure.
do we want these people in our party or not? Are they pure enough ideologically to be in our party? And so let's go through this example. Let's say my son marries this Catholic girl.
Okay.
Let's say these kids, I don't know what they were raised, let's say they're raised Catholic. Does that mean they no longer are Jewish at all?
Yeah.
Are they ethnically Jewish?
They would be.
Ethnically Jewish, religiously Catholic?
Ethic or ethnic?
Ethnic.
Ethnic.
You have to be, is it 100% or it's nothing?
Right.
And, you know, do you want to encourage a Jewish identity
identity as the Jewish grandparent. To
Right.
do that.
But does the
to help.
Jewish identity have to be a Jewish religious identity or a Jewish culture?
Strikes me that one path, God forbid, is they're not raised Jewish, they don't have any memories of Jewishness, and they think of themselves as not Jewish, and their kids as not Jewish. That would be disappearance, wouldn't it, in that? Although somebody down the line may say, wait a minute, but,
I mean, that would make me sad.
oh my goodness.
Well, this is that whole the Jewish continuity quandary is the emotional, the grief, frankly, that we feel when we know that, a lot of either families are choosing not to have children. This comes up a lot in Temple life, or that the grandkids are being raised in multiple faiths, or that it's confusing, whatever. Like there is grief to that, and I think it comes from the Jewish continuity, erasure, disappearance kind of schematic. But I think part of it is what values are important in your family.
Yeah.
What values did you teach your kid? What values is he going to carry forward to his hypothetical children one day? Those are Jewish values. So whether the label on it is this is an explicitly Jewish child with an explicitly Jewish identity, understanding these explicit Jewish teachings and values, maybe that's choice A, but there's probably another version of it where those same values, that same Torah that you taught your kid, get passed down. And maybe they don't have the language necessarily for it right away, but maybe they grow into understanding it as Jewish teachings they got from their grandfather.
Although one could say that those Jewish values are represented in other religions as well.
Right.
I mean, Christians are also universalists in some way. So just to have those values is probably not sufficient.
Probably not.
Yeah.
Probably not. Candy, you had your hand up. What are you going to say?
I was just gonna say, my daughter-in-law, who I believe's her parents were Catholic, was raised in East Germany, and people didn't go to church in East Germany. The communists didn't let that happen. And so her parents may have been Catholic, but she was not Catholic. She didn't know anything about it, and she doesn't care about it at all. And she is more willing to be Jewish than my son is, except that my son is Jewish, just in his own modern way.
So how does he manifest it? What does that look like for him?
He doesn't go to temple on Rosh Hashanah or Yom Kippur. He doesn't belong to a synagogue, but he built a sukkah.
Okay.
Don't ask me why.
Wow.
There you go.
Okay. I love that.
And then my daughter-in-law invited us all over, and we had the pork roast she made on the.
Well, you know what? If that's not the Reform movement's old dream, a little treifa banquet in the sukkah. I love
Yeah,
it.
exactly.
Yeah, kosher.
The 1 year we learned to say amen. I almost raised my hand and said it at temple, when.
The milestone.
Things happen during the week. She walked around the house saying amen, because they say the Lamotzi before dinner.
So
How
look,
about
it's
that?
I
happening.
thought that was beautiful.
It's happening.
And I looked at him and I said, Josh, it's time you taught her the Shema. And so, you know what? He started singing it to the 4-year-old now sings the Shema.
See, there you go, Candy. All right.
So that's what it
That
looks
sounds
like.
Jewish.
They don't want to be Jewish.
Sounds Jewish.
I know that.
Sounds Jewish.
They know that they're Jewish, but they just don't want to affiliate.
Okay. There are lots of ways to be Jewish. One of them is affiliation.
But that's the way it looks for him, so I just keep it on.
And yet, if they were told at some point when they didn't think of themselves as Jewish, you're not Jewish, this
Yeah.
this development may not have happened. So it may have been implicit, what's the word here, recessive, but it was ready to come out. And I think this is part of what is so provocative about this chapter, that we should embrace as wide an array as possible, if not inherently for its own sake, for survival value. Who knows how these seedlings are going to sprout?
He does his own thing, and it's in him, and he can't be in it. I will say an important part was, I came home from the Malta Museum and told about a woman I met who told me about Honeymoon Israel. And it's a program
40.
Never, 40, okay, they've never been to Israel before, where one is Jewish and the other spouse is not. Like, you know, some kind of missed the, birthright trips. And so, and my daughter-in-law loves to travel, and the idea of getting a free trip to Israel, I mean, she was online filling out the application before I left that evening. And the trip was full for that year, so they waited and they went the next year.
Nice.
And they have a community, a group of
Yeah.
people who they associate with in Cleveland.
The brilliance,
To the point where she
it's a
was
brilliant
out of town
program.
and
It really
said,
is.
I don't like working out of town now that I have babies on.
So it-
Uh-huh.
Because that's where all my
So,
friends and family.
The thing about Honeymoon Israel that's so brilliant, just to give them a little shout out, is that because of how they do their trips and because they're local trips, they're heavily facilitated, and then you come back in an intentional community of people you've just been on a transformational trip with, and you basically land home with your own Havurah. You have a Jewish community that you get to go through Jewish life with, and so it's a brilliant program.
It really is.
It really is.
But,
It's a really good program.
but a couple, both of whom are devout Jews, can't be on this program.
There was some stipulation. I just met with, did you know Shayna Potter Jaffe?
I don't.
She works with them. She's a rabbi in Cincinnati. They were just here. I met with her. I have to look at my notes. There was something about that.
But it is a brilliant idea,
It's
isn't
brilliant.
it?
Our youngest son and daughter-in-law did that.
Awesome.
And, and this was in DC.
Right.
So they had a great group and they got together for holidays and then everybody sort of moved to different places.
Yeah.
But, you know, they still do their own thing. Now that both of our sons are together, we do all the holidays.
Mm-hmm.
in
Nice.
California.
That's nice.
But it was a wonderful program and, yeah.
It's a good launch.
Yeah.
It's a good launch. Yeah. It's interesting. Look, I think to his point, there are lots of ways that we can interact with God. Non-interaction is still a way maybe of interacting. I don't know how much I agree with that.
No.
But it's an interesting idea.
That
The non-interaction is some kind of interaction.
that's.
I feel like he kind of does the same thing with Freud and Marx that he says he did with Marx.
He co-opts.
You know what I
it.
mean? He's like, oh, I
He-
had the books about Jewish athletes, and look at all these, there's 5 Jewish athletes, and we don't learn much about sports from them or being Jewish, but they're Jewish. And like, what temple has not done a Jews in sports class? I mean, we've done one in the last year. You guys did one, Shabbat Shuva, I think. Like, it's a thing we talk about. It's fun. It's exciting. What's better than seeing a Jewish celebrity do something great that's not embarrassing? And you're like, yeah, it's one of the good ones. They're Jewish. We love it. Love it. That's a different, but it's kind of the opposite. It's the opposite side of the coin, where it's like that level of intensity of like either pride or shame when somebody representing us. There's a online media source called Hey Alma. I don't know if any of you have ever read this. I'm the target demographic for it. And they do this social media post once a week called Jew or Not Jew, which they have a long disclaimer on, which is like, this is all in good fun. It's based on the information that we have. And it'll be like a picture of like George Clooney, Adam Sandler, Jennifer Garner, and Timothy Chalamet. You're supposed to vote if you think they're Jewish or not Jewish. And then at the end, it reveals to you if they are or are not. And what's so interesting is sometimes it's somebody who has an outspoken Jewish identity. Well, like Adam Sandler, we know is Jewish. This guy knows what he's talking about. He's an actual Jew with actual Jewish family and practice, right? Then there's people who are like, yes, they're second cousin 3 times removed, and it feels like it's a stretch, but there's something about like, all right, they're tangential, it's a thing. So there is that same kind of like joy. It's like one of our people.
Oh, sure.
I think that like claiming Mark Spitz, he does the same thing later to Marx and Freud, I think, where it's like, look, they're these great Jews. Like, look at their Jewish values. It feels disingenuous to me.
To call Marx Jewish. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, he sets it up by saying he's a second-generation Methodist or Lutheran, whatever he said. I can't remember.
Well, he's
Marx. Karl Marx.
he's co-opted Marx.
Well, and he's like, he descended from rabbis. Okay.
So what do they say about Jeffrey Epstein?
Oh, yeah.
Or the sculptor that Samantha Basket is going to talk about on Sunday.
Yes, with 3 first names.
Pardon?
It's 3 first names, isn't it? It's
Ezekiel.
Oh, yeah.
is one of them Moses?
Jacob, Moses, Ezekiel.
Jacob Moses.
Right.
That's three first names.
The son of the South, who was a Confederate
Mm-hmm.
in the military academy and was sort of required as a teenager to fight in an actual battle with the Yankees. His best friend was killed and has died in his arms.
Oh God, it's so sad.
And he spent a great part of his career creating what we would now think of as white supremacist Jim Crow monuments, including the really big one at Arlington.
And what's the point, what's the inference here?
Well, are we proud of this?
Oh, well, my God.
How Jewish is, I mean, he was very, he was Orthodox, very anti-reform Judaism in his life. I think Samantha's probably going to talk about that.
It's not surprising that some Jews are admirable people.
Business is
Right,
separate.
but how do we look at him today, anyhow? That's something-
Right. Well, and it's an interesting issue in particular because it takes a very contemporary issue, which is, do you separate art from an artist?
There's that too.
That's like a whole piece of it right now. And so then you take this older kind of artist of a certain very difficult era, and you have to wrestle with that also.
Yes.
Like, how much does it matter that he was Jewish?
Part of our collective history.
Of course.
That's the
And
thing.
it would be
That's well
surprising.
said. That's the thing.
It would be surprising if all Jews are exemplary.
Oh, and then
Well, like, indoctrinated, brainwashed.
You know,
Do you think people who are Catholic get upset when Jewish people do?
So that's a great question. So the question is basically, do other groups have the same sense of peoplehood and kind of shared peoplehood identity that the Jews as a capital T, capital J people have? Like, do the Catholics have a peoplehood identity? Or are they just so vast that it's actually very hard to keep
I
pulse on?
think Catholic,
Any group, I'm just saying.
No, but,
I just
yeah.
feel like there's a sensitivity
yeah.
that.
Catholics can be
Yeah.
ethnic, Irish Catholics. Protestants, I think by definition, are not ethnic. They're Protestants through faith.
Yes, but there are also
They can be.
white nationalist Christians,
Sure.
which is its own kind of beast, where that is ethnic, but it's not because they're Christian.
You know, this
But
point
it's-
about Jewish anxiety, there's a very famous essay by Simon Bravodovich, you know this, and the title of the essay is The Jews.
I love that you turned to me like I know this essay. You're like,
expect
you're familiar.
Yeah, I want you to say. Yeah,
I have read
even
it.
If you
I know it by heart.
So the title of this essay is Jews, the ever-dying people.
I actually have heard of this.
See, I knew,
You're very
I
good.
knew it. And his point is that throughout Jewish history, Jews have been anxious that this is the last generation,
Yep.
and that after this will disappear. And his point is that this very phenomenon has Jewish survival value. To think that we're at the end stimulates us to be sure it doesn't happen. So Jewish anxiety that it's the end may be real, I mean, God forbid, but it may also serve a larger purpose that, I mean, how many Catholics are there in the world and so on? Whereas opposed to, what, 12 million, 13 million Jews, something like that. So we have some rationale for feeling, wow, we're already small, that larger groups don't necessarily feel.
Well, and we are a evergreen in terms of being victimized people. We have reason to fear it, not just from our own internal fading away from the religion, but from outside forces.
No question,
And
right.
so I think having that dynamic, and at the same time in modern American society, having a sharp drop in religiosity writ large. And maybe I shouldn't say religiosity, maybe I should say affiliation.
You mean writ large? that
Across
transcends-
religions,
Across religions.
across denominations, that we are seeing, you know, that Pew study that came out 10 or 12 years ago, that, you know, there's more nuns than ever before because people aren't affiliating. I think that gave everybody a little bit of a punch to the gut of like, then what's gonna happen? And so that's like an added layer of the Jewish survival question, but that's not a Jewish specific dynamic, it's just another cultural tide that we're kind of up against.
Right.
Yeah.
Would we have survived as a people if we were not as stigmatized and discriminated against as we have been and were allowed to freely assimilate and become full citizens in every country that we lived in the last 2,000 years?
It's an interesting question.
The Jews that have made them survive, or is it the fact that Jews have been stigmatized?
You know, there's a,
Going back to my 23andMe,
Right.
there's a famous
Right.
conversation.
I had my big surprise in 23andMe, not that I found out I'm different from who I was, but that all four of my grandparents were related to each other. I have a brother and sister,
Uh-huh.
second, third cousin, because you can see all these strings.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
You know, when you look in these parts of Eastern Europe,
Yeah,
I mean, Jews were not allowed to.
sure.
Well, it's like what you said. Where else are they going? They're in the shtetl. Where are they going? Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
so,
It's interesting.
is that because of faith? Is that because of faith or choice, or was that because of no choice?
Yeah, that's right. That's probably very common in the shtetl.
Well, in the shtetl, but also think about like royalty, like different. I mean, there are
I'm not descended from any royalty.
that you know of. There's more data every day on
That's right,
23.
That's right, exactly.
The thing is, compared to the history of Ashkenazi that left before the Holocaust, they were here, like, none of my relatives were in Europe. They were out.
Right, you're many generations in the States. Yeah.
1900s.
Right.
Were they Western European Jews or Eastern European?
Eastern European.
Eastern? Wow.
Yeah. Your question is an interesting one. Like, if we had not been persecuted, amen. If we had not been persecuted, would we have had the impetus, the catalyst to continue surviving? Or would we have been like, this is great, we're Germans now, see ya?
You know,
You know?
Well, the Germans, you know, they were very, I'm going to generalize, assimilated though. Yeah. And,
So they thought.
and my sister's family got out of, her in-laws, my brother-in-law's family got out of Berlin in 37, 38, you know, cutting it close for many reasons. And
Yeah.
my sister's father-in-law said Christmas was very big at our house. You know, they did go to temple on high holidays, but aside from that, nothing.
we, a couple of generations ago, many members of Tifereth Israel
yes.
had Christmas trees.
Many.
That were Jewish households? Because now a lot of them do too, but it's because one parent's not, one parent's not Jewish.
I'm thinking of one in particular. That doesn't make a case,
No, I
really,
know,
but,
yeah.
but
But I
still.
went to school with many who did. Had.
You know, Theodor Herzl, the founder of political Zionism, said, "We're Jews and our enemies have made us Jews." That the very idea of persecution arouses in us a resistance. You know, I'm going to be Jewish.
Well, and think about the modern state of Israel. We have the right of return. So that if you are Jewish enough to be persecuted by anti-Semites, then you're Jewish enough to have a safe haven in Israel.
That's right.
The persecution alone doesn't account for all the other
Right.
qualities.
That's
that,
true.
Even that he's talking about in terms of secular Judaism or cultural Judaism, whatever you want to, however you want to label it.
Universalist Jews.
Yeah, it doesn't account for all of those other qualities and characteristics that we're talking about.
No,
No.
absolutely.
No, I think it's just one factor of many.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, it'd be interesting to try to make a connection there between the persecution theory and, let's say, facility with language, studiousness,
Positive factors.
communication across different cultures.
Yeah.
By the way, we've joked about the shtetl, but that was also a survival tool.
That was
Like
also
having- A survival tool. Having your community at arm's reach is a survival tool.
Oh, absolutely.
And I think it still is in many circles.
It is.
That you are comfortable with other Jewish people.
Sitting in the schwitz at the JCC.
You're right.
Yep.
It's,
There was a famous, maybe apocryphal conversation between two monarchs one, let's say Maria Theresa of the Hungarian Empire and Catherine of Russia. They were talking about how to deal with their Jews. And Catherine said, I'm going to persecute them. And Maria Theresa said, I'm just going to leave them alone. And that normalization would lead to assimilation.
It's the long game.
Yeah, right.
Who do you think is his intended audience for this argument that he's making? Is this written for black and white Jews? To say, hey, you ought to accept a larger definition. Do you think that's what he's doing?
He's a somewhat Orthodox Jew himself,
I'm
isn't
sure
he?
he'd love you calling him somewhat Orthodox.
That'd be a whole chapter itself. The somewhat Orthodox.
I'll see your black and white and raise you gray.
That's funny. Yeah.
Yeah, who's he trying to convince here? Is he trying to convince the Bagel and Lox Jews that they're Jewish, or is his audience something else?
I don't think he thinks the Bagels and Lox Jews are reading his book.
Exactly. No, I think it's confusing today in this world, there are more factions, it seems to me, of people, of different ways of practicing Judaism than there ever were. So, I could think, well, is he really Jewish? Or something, and I'm going to assume that I wouldn't be the only one, and the book could answer that in a way,
He's certainly making a case for pluralism. Whether it's consistent throughout is a question. So it certainly poses as an American form of creating a society, at least in principle, pluralistic America. And we Jews are also pluralistic. It may be a case for Judaism as a way of getting an acceptance of Judaism in American culture. We're just like, I don't know that he's doing this consciously. He's also on the faculty at Harvard Law School.
Right.
He may be making a case to his colleagues, really, that we embrace as widely as possible. And there may be a variety of professors of law at Harvard Law School. He may be trying to convince his colleagues. I love
That's
the
interesting.
attempt, though, of trying to be as embracing as possible.
why not have all these varieties? I agree with the China.
Well, yes, we agree in this building.
Yeah, that's right.
Our neighbors on Green Road may not, or maybe they will. I love to be surprised. I don't want to make the wrong assumptions, but the challenge of being a progressive Jew is that our tent has different boundaries than other Jews' tents.
That's right.
So we have maybe a more colorful kaleidoscope, and that's a tension.
So if you wanna be a citizen of Israel, you don't have to be Orthodox.
No.
No.
You just, do they ask you what kind of Jew you are?
I mean, they ask you that when you fly on El Al.
Boundaries or rules?
Only if you
Yes.
live there.
Actually, I think you just had to prove Jewish, your mother was Jewish, is that right?
This is for Aliyah.
So there's a difference between right of return and there's right of return, and then there's also just general aliyah. You don't have to be Jewish to be a citizen of Israel.
Right.
Okay.
So there's different ways to move. Well, you wouldn't call it making aliyah if you're not Jewish. There's a theological implication. We do aliyah to the Torah, going up to Israel.
Right.
That's a theological term. That's a Jewish term. It's not just that it's Hebrew.
It's also a secular term when people return to.
Well, going up to Israel is a way of saying it's like a spiritual going to Israel, but you could move to Israel as a person in the world with the right paperwork. You don't have to be Jewish to be a citizen there.
No.
You don't have to move to Israel and become a resident to get an Israeli passport.
Can't speak to the passport specifications right now because the current government has made different changes and the Rabbanut has different power than in previous iterations, so I don't want to speak definitively. Oh, yeah. Okay, then maybe you've got the most up-to-date.
It didn't even require staying overnight. It's just, there's a ceremony at the airport.
Yeah.
You can get back on a
Wow.
That's what we read last year.
Interesting. Yeah. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
where are
Interesting
we?
question. Where are we? One of the things I think is so interesting, having gotten through, well,
That's where we are now.
look, we've got a lot of congregants. I'm hearing from people pretty regularly looking at all sorts of external citizenships that are not American and not Israel. Like, I think there's a lot of people trying to figure out, oh, my ancestors were Polish, or can I get Hungarian passport? I mean, there's people looking. One thing I found interesting, having read this whole section on God, was that it's not really a section on theology. It's really a section on how, well, maybe it is, but it's not about like, here are the top 10 theologians of Jewish history. It's really, how do people organize themselves in community around how they identify with or don't identify with God?
So you think it's more sociological
It-
than
Yeah,
theological?
yes, I do, that as a concept is interesting to me.
Interesting.
Like, I don't think that if we polled our congregation, we'd have one type of theology here. But I do think most of our congregation would feel comfortable being labeled progressive Jews based on that chapter.
Oh, absolutely.
And so I think it's interesting that we are not monolithic, even within denominations, even within communities, even within families. And I think that does come across here. So to me, that's the pluralism I find exciting in what he's presented, is that even if he clearly has a bias, there is space in his conception of who is a Jew in modern America that is, I think, compelling and colorful. And I like that there is some kind of visibility for lots of different types of communities based around God.
I think that's very well put. And in a certain way, he can't be fully consistent to his own principles, that this issue of God comes back in. You have to be a believer even if you don't think so. But aside from that little bit of a problem, and I suppose, there's this idea that who we are is not even transparent to ourselves. Who am I?
Right.
So we really just don't know what parts of ourselves we might find problematic, but they burst in. But I think by and large, I think you're absolutely right, that it's in principle very open, not progressive, I don't want to co-opt that term from him, but yeah. But it's also kind of interesting that he couldn't be fully consistent.
No, and he doesn't say, I'm making a case for pluralism.
No, that's right, that's right,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think it's odd that he uses the term godless.
Well, I think for him, that's part of that is his bias showing. Like, I think for him, Judaism is a religion about God. It's our relationship with God. And that's why that chapter, The Struggle, I think is poignant, because for him, there is no actual Judaism without God. And so, when we started the course and we talked about, which of these three, God, peoplehood, or Israel, really resonates with you, for him, I think it's kind of moot. It's got to be all three, but God is a very strong piece of that pyramid. And I think godless shows his bias. It's a God-centered identity.
But he also talks about, as part of that, worship, study of Jewish texts and so on. So I don't think it's just about God, but the implications. But what I think is interesting about that is, like all of us, whatever our overt principles, what we would say we are, is still up against instincts that may not be able to be put aside. And so in a certain way, this is a very heroic chapter, because in a way, against some instincts, he was raised as an Orthodox Jew. Against his instincts, he's overcoming to some, but not full degree, some of those instincts. You think?
I like the generous tone of it.
Yeah,
I just
good way.
picked up on the kerfuffle that you mentioned there on page 121.
Yeah.
But, I think, it's not 121, sorry.
Near the end, 119. But I think Ellie has put her finger too. He co-opts Marx and Freud. He makes them sort of, yeah.
But I think we do that. I think we do that. We do that to people.
When I read
But I think, because that's what we do, like, I think there is also a point of pride of that. Like, those are two people
Yes,
that have
there
made
is.
an incredible impact on history and society and how we think about things, even if we don't agree with them. Like, they were huge change makers in the way that they saw the world and what they were able to enact. And I think those guys are Jewish.
That's what you call Jewish fandom?
I think so. We're the fair weather fans.
You know, my grandmother thought that Carl Stokes, whom she admired, was Jewish. I mean, he's a good person. He's got to be, so
Must
that
be
was
Jewish.
the other way
He's a
of
mensch.
putting it.
If he's a mensch, he must be a Jew.
Yeah, exactly.
It's funny. I think there is something to that. And I think, by the way, part of that is pride in peoplehood. That's not insignificant.
I think that's a good
There are a
point.
lot of people for whom their primary Jewish identity is Jewish food and Jewish culture. And part of Jewish culture is the celebrities of all sorts of different fields that make up who we are as a people.
Right. Sandy Koufax.
Yeah. Come on.
Exactly.
It's great. So, I don't know. It's
Hank Greenberg went to synagogue on Rosh Hashanah morning, and to the rabbi's dismay, everybody stopped and stood up and applauded his arrival.
Would you have done that?
Would I have? I would not have stopped, but I would have applauded.
Very good. Anyway,
All right.
well, we have to decide what we're doing next. Are we moving forward?
Yeah. What do you?
We're moving to the idea of Israel.
You're okay
Okay.
continuing this book and this kind of study? Good.
All right, then I think we'll do section 2, chapter 1, which will take us to page 149. I can't remember the next date. Let me see if I can find it.
So that's 125 to 149. Oh, the next date.
I
Yeah.
have to see if it's on the calendar. To be a Jew today.
What is today?
It may be. That sounds very
This must be the
possible.
third.
May 13th, yep. Okay, so for May 13th, we'll read The Idea of Israel, section 2, chapter 1.
Good.
2, 1, May 13th. Okay,
And
I'll ask
look at-
Cindy to send
Look
it
at
out.
part 4, Israel without Zionism. It's parallel to 1:4, Jews without God.
Israel without Zionism. Well, this will be an interesting journey.
Definitely. So we're going to do just part 1.
I think so.
Yeah.
That's however how I got this idea. I've long time this for years. I've always sort of thought, you really didn't have to believe in God or know what God was about. I mean, it was sort of, it's all very ephemeral and,
What are you saying? Say that again.
well, I always thought one of the hallmarks of being Jewish, except, I mean, if you were Reform or even conservative, you didn't necessarily know what God was. I mean, it was very ephemeral, unspeakable, unknowable.
And a pivot, you're saying that it was important without really knowing.
Right, but you didn't need to know. And honestly, as a young child, I felt very religious and I had my own views of what it was all about. And no one told me, and it just sort of came to me. So,
Yeah. I
am
think,
I wrong? I mean, as far as this idea
I don't
that,
think so. No, and I think, like, we're not testing people,
Yeah.
right? It's not like when somebody comes to us and they say, we want to join Mishkan, or we're not like, do you believe in God? What do you think God is? Explain God to us. You know what I mean? Like, there's not like a test.
What's your favorite prayer?
What's your favorite part? Like, I think ephemeral is a good word for it, and I think that's why we have like theology classes, because no one knows. So that's part of the fun of the mystery and the tradition. So yeah, I think that's totally fine. I think my hope is for all people that they're able to think a lot about it, even if they don't land anywhere. But to me, that's the struggle, that's the wrestling, that's the engagement. So the ideas you had as a child that over your life you've been encouraged and given support to, challenge those ideas, let them evolve, and see where you land in the next season, and then continue to do that year over year. That's my hope for people.
And he makes the point that has sort of great survival value as well. the ongoing conversation, the conversation itself.
That's right. Well, thank you all for being here. I hope nobody has hail damage
Yeah.
or power outages. Good luck.
We'll see you soon. Thanks.
Yeah. See you in
Thanks.
May, hopefully sooner.
God willing.
I know, the last time we talked, we had another weather event.
Oh, did we?
Remember, there was a power outage.
Oh, yes.
I think-
Oh, you're right. Are we jinxing?
We had a bad snowstorm the one before that. I think every session we
I
had
think
something crazy.
We're jinxing the place.
Maybe. Well, and yet we persist.
Maybe God is unhappy with the way,
We're very happy.
or very
Maybe-
happy.
maybe
This is
God
applause.
psyched. Yeah. I will choose to interpret it that way.
Great to see you, Nancy.
Oh, you too, thank you.
And